Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. So today's episode we're going to look at UFC 323, which I'm filming this Saturday morning, so the fight will happen this evening. And the goal of this video is to zero in on the fights and to see if there's any compelling matchups, and then to pick one fighter and then do a little bit of a deep dive into some of the metrics of the fighter as far as social media following, card sales, what boxes their rookie cards are in, and then come up with a little bit of a connect the dots to what I think a move could be made with maybe buying some boxes or buying some singles or a combination of both. So it's kind of going to be a little bit of an exploratory video, and hopefully you enjoy the journey and where we end up. And let's get started. So UFC 323 is highlighted by Merab versus Yan 2, and that's the main event. As we scroll down here, we see the main card here. Pantoja versus Van, Marino versus Taira, Cejudo versus Talbot, and it goes down the list here. There were two compelling matchups to me that caught my eye, and I'm going to go with the number 2 one that we're not going to do a deep dive in, but I just kind of want to mention it, and then I'll focus on my number 1 pick. So this is the prelims, then we go to the early prelims, which is here. And it's a pretty decent card. I know social media, is kind of down on this card a little bit, but I think there's some interesting matchups. So the most exciting fight, in my opinion, is Nazim versus Ferris. I think they're both super entertaining fighters, super aggressive in the ring, and they're fun to watch. They're young, they're up and coming, they have a lot of energy. And you can see here, it should be a pretty good fight with the tight odds range here. And again, we're not talking about betting on this channel, but it's just an interesting data point to look at. They're really not that popular yet in the world of UFC. Their social media followings, I believe, are about, on Instagram, between like 60,000, I think, for Nazim, and maybe like 100,000 for Ferris. I may have that backwards. But anyway, this fight is super interesting. They both have cards in UFC. I believe the Ferris rookie is 2022 or 2023. The Nazim is 2025, I believe. And they have some interesting cards there to look at. But that wasn't the one that really caught my attention to move my meter. So the one I liked, which is a legacy play, playing into the history of the fighter, is the Brandon Moreno Tatsuro Taira fight. So again, tight odds here. Brandon is the slight favorite, fighting out of Mexico. Huge social media following. He has over 2 million followers on Instagram. Very active on there, engages his fans. He is the better fighter. He is more athletic. He is more skilled. And he should win. But this video is more about than just who's going to win the fight. It's kind of like trying to look at fights that are interesting, look at fighters, and then do a little bit of a deep dive into their cards, some of the sealed boxes that may be hidden or may be revealed, and I kind of go from there. So this is the fight we're looking at, Marino versus Taira. And the next one I just want to pull up is 2.1 million followers on social media, the Assassin Baby. Obviously his nickname, has a lot of posts here, a lot of action, gets a lot of likes, which I like. When we're investing in or looking at sealed product, you try to look long-term. And like the social media aspect, how many people pay attention, how many people are following. And even when their fighting days are over, whether they become trainers or they become some influencer in another realm or they're still involved in the UFC as a commentator, they still have a brand. They still have something that stands beyond the test of time of them as a fighter. And I think when you're trying to align long-term value for sealed boxes, you want to look for individuals that made their mark on the UFC, had an impact on the culture, but also have the potential, and this is the wild card, like long-term relevancy in the sport, in the spotlight, and beyond. because when someone's name is constantly in the media, that drives attention. People want to see what they're doing. And that drives individuals in the collectibles market and the sealed box investing. It's all a big cycle. So that's the thought process here. So let's look on eBay here. So Brandon Marino's rookie card is considered 2021. So I did Brandon Marino 2021. And you can see here he has some pretty expensive cards listed. Again, these are buy it nows. You got to take with a grain of salt. But like the 101 Prism Auto, $7,000. A couple other cards here. 1 of 5, 8 of 10, out of 5. That UFC Panini Immaculate. This is kind of a sick card here. It's overpriced, obviously, but still a pretty good looking card. But again, like the asking price is high. Again, these are just data points we're collecting. None of this really means anything yet until we put it together. So let's go to auctions. We sort by highest. And again, not a lot of Brandon Marinos up for auction. There's a couple here out of 99 for 550, SGC 95. Not a lot of action for Marino. Some of his cards are up here. Here's another one. Shimmer Auto out of 39, 1750. The Regalia Royalty out of 49. Like you would figure this would get a bid for 25 bucks. And I understand like he fights out of Mexico, a lot of fans in Mexico. I'm not sure the collectibles market in Mexico for UFC is that advanced yet or that influential, but it's interesting to think about. 25 Topps Royalty Auto out of 25, 16 bucks. But yeah, some sales, some action. 2025 Knockout out of 50. That's a sick card. Let's check that out. Fighter War Memorabilia. That I'm going to look at. I'm going to add that to my watch list. I like that card. So next we're going to go to Card Ladder and look at some sales from Marino 2021, his rookie year. We do see some sales. We see the cracked ice on the right side here. Out of 25, one for 120. So again, rookie autos pulling decent prices, 120 bucks. This was a recent sale. And then if we sort by price, and again, these prices are from 3 years ago. You know, you got to take these with a grain of salt. A lot of prices have come down since then. But the one thing that's a little interesting is that all the big prices for Marino were well into the past, 2022, 23. 1 of 1, but bringing big numbers. This might be the one we saw on eBay. Trying to see if there are any recently big sales for him, at least in 2025. I don't see any here. It's kind of interesting if they look at is maybe the higher end of his stuff is tapered off or not as popular amongst collectors. They're willing to put money into him. Let's see, nothing in 2025. I'm at $300 price point too. So that's interesting. So the top end of his doesn't seem to be, here's one. What is this? 2021 Panini Select UFC True Rookie Prism out of 10 Auto Sticker Auto for $280. Go down a little bit further. It's really not January 1st of this year. 2021 Chronicles out of Gold out of 10. Yeah, I think the thing with Marino is that, you know, most collectors probably realize he's not at the top of his weight class, or that he's never going to reach the highest end peak of UFC for what was maybe expected of him. So there may be a perspective he's a little bit of a letdown, but he's still loved. He's still appreciated. He's still a legend and will have impact in this sport, but it is something to think about. Now we're going to go to waxstat.com, and his rookies is 2021 Panini Prism UFC box. This is the most desirable box that he has a rookie card in, but this box also has a ton of other amazing rookies, and you know, this is the debut product for UFC Panini Prism. So take this with a grain of salt that this is less about the Marino, more about just the quality of the product itself. You can see your boxes are about 950 bucks online at Burbank. For Waxstat, I did pay for the premium. Let me take that back. I did sign up for the premium membership, but they give you a 7-day free trial. So I did that. eBay has it for 900 bucks. Blowout has it for 1,000. That's a duplicate. And again here, Burbank, 950. You can always email Burbank and try to negotiate lower, see if you get a better deal. We see here on eBay, again, this is the debut edition. So my theory that, the debut edition of any product or any line of product is always the most desirable, or could be the most desirable long-term, or at least has the lowest downside in my opinion. So we look here, we have one at auction for $625, which I bookmarked. I'm gonna bid on that. The lowest you can buy is 900. We see another store for $950. Again, if you're gonna buy from these websites, whether it's Burbank, I don't think Blowout has it in stock, like always reach out to them and their customer service. Most of the time they will come down on price on website. Sometimes they're rigid and they will not, but you have nothing to lose by asking. If you can save, 50 bucks or 100 bucks, like it's only worth shooting the email. They're reaching out to them on their Instagram to find out. So to circle all this back together and to try to come up with kind of a final takeaway, I think that the fact that Marino's a 2021 Prism is less relevant than the importance that this is a premier, one of the premier products for Prism debut of UFC. I think that's what drives this box. The Marino being in there or not really doesn't matter. So what I'm going to do for this is I'm going to keep it on this auction on eBay and try to see if I can get this box for maybe 700 to 800. I'll probably bid up to 800 on this. As far as individual cards, like I'm going to pay attention to this card. Like any Fighter War memorabilia with an auto, I'm a fan of cool poses. So I wish this was in fight, but it's not. But still a decent pose, decent looking card. Wish it was more white, but has Fighter War memorabilia in the auto. Pick up a couple of these kind of cheap just to add to the collection. And I just think his following and how much he's loved and his impact on the sport and some of his big wins. I mean, real quick, what do I want to do here? Just to kind of recap, if I can do this real quick. 23-8 record. So we go to, where do I want to go? To Tapology. Kind of some of his recent fights here, if I can pull them up. So last few fights, in 2023, July 2023, he lost split decision to Pantoja. The fight with Albazi was canceled. He lost by split decision to Roval. He beat Albazi. This is the fight that was rescheduled by unanimous decision. He beat Urseg back in March by unanimous decision, and then he's fighting Tower. So it has some good wins. Again, like we're not playing into so much his fighting style, which he has a decent fight style in my opinion, but he's a legend of the sport and he's loved, and he's number 3 of flyweight all time according to this UFC ranking. I love this website. There's so much data on here, so many cool things to look at, but yeah, I mean, that's kind of my perspective. So to pick up a couple cheap, interesting cards with Fighter War memorabilia, look at the 21 Prism debut product and maybe add more to the position. I think I have 8 boxes of that currently that I picked up upon release when it came out in 2021, but add another one won't hurt. And that kind of sums up the video. Nothing super crazy or super interesting, but sometimes it's good for me, especially somebody that's coming from investing in other sports and other collectibles like Pokemon and basketball and football for sealed boxes and wax, to try to understand how this market works just beyond what I see in the ring. Like as a fan of UFC and I love watching the fights, but to try to have a deeper level of understanding of what drives value, what UFC collectors look for and what matters to them, is kind of hard for me, because on the outside looking in, like I would think Brandon Moreno stuff would be valued higher, but clearly it's not. And that's kind of the learning curve for me to figure this out and just to add it to my mental model for how I look at this stuff. But hopefully you got a little something out of this video today. Please like and comment down below. It really helps out the algorithm. If you can subscribe, I'd really appreciate it. I try to do daily videos on UFC, collectibles, sealed boxes, single cards, a little bit of everything. Just trying to figure out different niches and ways I like to do this. I try to make this content for things, obviously if I get feedback from all of you, what you would like to see. But at the end of the day, I'm filming and doing the stuff that I enjoy about the research and just trying to explore this hobby and trying to learn cool stuff. So hopefully you get a little something out of it. But with all that said, stay safe, be well, take care of yourself, eat your protein, drink your water, and try to do 45 minutes a day of cardio and help out your heart. And I'll talk to you again soon.